Okay, so I'm very glad to be here again today. And today we have the second broadcast of the early morning show. We will be continuing the topic of new client hunting, which we commenced last week, and we will be developing further some of the concepts that we came across and that we saw. If you managed to see the previous broadcast, you'll understand and you'll remember perhaps that we covered a couple of different ideas which are quite important. So, for example, we looked at the 1-2-4 rule, where we saw that it takes you 4 times as much effort to get work from a totally new client, twice as much effort to get it from an ex-client, and 1 hour of work, 1 time the effort to get it from a current client. So our best source of work, the best source of generating new revenues for your practice as quickly and easily as possible is actually your current and your ex-clients. So business development isn't only limited to new client hunting, which is the kind of misleading name for the first 4 broadcasts of this series. In addition, we saw a few other common mistakes that law firms are doing, such as client neglect, not taking care of the current and ex-clients, and we saw a few different ideas and recommendations on some of the best practices, which we will look at further today. Again, just to remind everybody about what we're doing here, the early morning show, this is a little project that I put together. We just started last Thursday on the 10th of November 2022, and we'll be doing this every Thursday morning from 8:30 to 9:30 Central European Time. The idea of the early morning show is to help those in the legal industry, especially partners, managing partners, but in fact any lawyers who are keen to become more commercially sophisticated, because this isn't something which is taught at university. And if you are a more commercial lawyer, more proactive, can understand the needs of your clients better, in general, you're going to be a lawyer more able to assist the clients in getting to where they want to go to, and you will have more fun and success in your legal career. So it's not a bad idea to develop these skills. We have objectives for the early morning show to change the mindset of lawyers so that sales doesn't need to be a horrible, unpleasant burden to be tolerated. For me to share some of the key concepts that I've discovered and developed over 20 years in legal industry. I worked with 500 law firms in about 70 countries. So there's one or two things that I might be able to share with you that could be of value. So of course, it's not totally a charity. It's not totally pro bono. This is also to raise awareness of Nixedonia, our products or services, my service, which is basically legal sales training. And then also, why not? It's to facilitate discussion, idea sharing, to try and get some of the best concepts that we can share together and develop together. So I don't have all of the answers. You understand your jurisdiction far better than I can. And, if you have some good ideas or thoughts, we can discuss and we can develop these concepts together. So it's a safe space for discussion and contribution and business development, idea development. This sounds a little bit funny. So, again, like last time, we have 16 key concepts, which I will try to cover, and I'll try and keep this on time in the half-hour lecture that we have. Like I mentioned before, each of the key concepts, they have their associated pictogram, and the idea being that if afterwards I can show you the pictogram and you can associate that pictogram with the key concept, then it means that you've learned it and you know the concept. Doesn't mean, of course, that you have to agree with it. From these 16 key concepts, even if there's only 2 or 3 or 4 that bring something to you, that's fantastic. That's cool. So you pick and mix whatever you like. You can use. If you don't like it, if you don't think it's appropriate, then you don't need to touch it. The first concept that I would like to touch on today in business development, especially in new client hunting, is that of vision. And what does this mean? This means that we do need to have a vision of where we want to be going, not just the company and not just the partners, but each and every single lawyer. Unfortunately, most law firms don't really have an ambitious and exciting vision of where they want to go to. You could allocate an industry per lawyer if you have a small to medium sized practice. You could give them ownership and responsibility to develop that. Our vision is to become well known in these industries, to develop them, to get introductions, to get meetings, meetings being the key concept. The key metric of success is our lawyers getting meetings proactively generated with current, ex, and new clients in the targets that we want to go for. What is the vision? If you don't have an overarching vision and then a vision of the partners and the departments and individual visions, it's going to be very difficult to aspire and strive towards commercial success. I think legal startups, small to medium sized firms, are better than this, are better at this than the larger international firms. In many of the larger firms, I think the lawyers feel like a mouse in a wheel, just running, 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 running. I do a memorandum, I do a memorandum, I do another memorandum. It sounds really dull, you know? Take a step out and work out where it is that you're going to want to be going. And if someone doesn't help you to create a vision for yourself. The main motivator I found for lawyers in business development isn't being forced to do this by a managing partner or by partners, nor is it a financial motivation system. It's their own aspiration, trying to become the best lawyer and the most well-known lawyer in a specific segment, industry, or practice of their choice. If someone isn't helping you to do this, you do it for yourself. Further, I think constructive, proactive feedback internally from partners and other senior colleagues on your work and from clients about our external work is probably a good idea. Now, like I mentioned in the previous session, very few law firms are good at getting feedback. Very few law firms are good at giving feedback. I often come across something which I call the Nike mistake from partners, which is they just tell lawyers, just do it. You got to do it. It's a task, just do it. And then there is no feedback afterwards, or only if things go horribly wrong. No, we need to have that full cycle of understanding the ability for people to do things, exploring their needs, exploring their motivations and their skills, delegating the task, doing it, and then giving the feedback afterwards, including constructive feedback. I wouldn't label these as positive and negative feedback. I would call this constructive feedback, where we're trying to help a person get on the right track and do things in a more constructive and efficient way. And then reinforcing feedback where something is done that is good and it helps and it's a best practice. We want to reinforce that so that they'll continue to do it. A very bad idea in order to check client satisfaction would be to ask, what did we do well? Or, how happy are you? Because this can make it too abstract, too difficult to think. And especially if you're asking about feedback on one of your colleagues, one of your juniors who'd been working with a client, a different approach might be, what would he do even better? What could be even better? He's a rising star, and you get that one piece of advice in a positive frame about what could be done better, then you deal with it, you delegate it, you train it, you improve the skills, you improve the will, and you know that will help you to move the customer from customer satisfaction to client delight. Client delight is when they are 10 out of 10 satisfied. That's what we need. We saw this before in the 1-2-4 model, the 1-2-4 rule. That's what we need if we want to make a current client into a raving fan. Don't assume that you're going to get feedback, even negative feedback, uh, just because the client will tell you. They might not mention it. We have the example, there's a little story, the English soup mistake. An Englishman goes into a restaurant, he has some soup, the soup is disgusting, and the waiter asks, "How was your soup?" The Englishman says, "It was very nice, thank you." He pays the bill and he never comes back. So some clients might not necessarily complain, they'll just stop working with you. So this kind of positive framing of what could we do even better, what could he do even better, is a good way to get the feedback, as long as you then incorporate it into making changes to your operations, which is also quite important. In terms of a satisfaction score, On a scale of 1 to 5, if the client gives you a scale answer of 4 or 5, that means they're satisfied. Anything under that is not satisfied. To find your percentage of satisfied customers, it's the 4s and the 5s divided by all of the answers multiplied by 100. Do you know your satisfaction score for a practice or a department or a project? Quite often the answer is no. So knowing the satisfaction score is not a bad place to start. And then you need to improve it. You need to work on what needs to be changed to get that client delight. Feedback, like I mentioned, is extremely, extremely important. We talked about this before, and I can emphasize it again today. Doing client satisfaction surveys is one way to do it, as long as they are simple, 2 or 3 questions, as long as they are integrated into a continuous improvement model. We identify what needs to be improved, we then improve it, we then communicate how it was improved, and we measure again. Once more, I haven't seen any law firms around the world which have a systematic approach to total quality improvement through such a cycle. Probably be easier for small to medium sized law firms. So if you wanted to do that, you definitely could. Benchmarking. You can also compare yourself against your colleagues. So let's imagine you want to have the vision that you're going to be a very progressive law firm in your jurisdiction, and you're going to get into some new industries. You're going to open in biotech law, nanotechnology law, some ESG and environmental law activities. You could benchmark. You could see which other law firms in your jurisdiction actually are already doing this. You could see what are the clients that they're working with. You could begin to see what would be the common benchmark in terms of other metrics that your competitors are doing, pricing, rates, time periods, and so on. So it's a good idea to compare yourself to the other companies and maybe not only those in the legal industry. So there are many different ways that we can do this. Benchmarking is usually done very unofficially and informally by kind of rule of thumb, but a systematic approach to it could be much more effective. Then, I'm often given uh, the warning from some of our lawyers that their jurisdiction is too small. They can't possibly simply focus on biotech or nanotech or ESG. And I tell them, well, it's okay if you have to do many different areas of law, but perhaps you should have 4 resumes. So you could have your resume as a corporate lawyer. You could have your resume as a lawyer dealing with healthcare and life sciences. You could have your very niche lawyer emphasizing your biotech experience, and then you could have something else about corporate structuring, maybe with an open door to M&A. You could have, and perhaps you really should have, 4 different resumes. This, by the way, guys, is another big mistake that law firms make with the Legal 500 and the chambers. It is not acceptable to have one generic resume that you use for all of the different practice areas. If that submission is for real estate, you should have a real estate flavored resume. If it's for corporate, the same. So a lot of law firms, they lose ranking and recognition by being basically lazy and using one resume. Have different resumes, emphasizing different clients and projects that you've worked on. This isn't such a difficult thing to do. Yes, it takes time, take you maybe a couple of hours to begin with, but then your chances of conversion when you do your pitching and you use these resumes in your pitches will be significantly higher. Once more, we understand that for the proactive pitching, in terms of whatever you want to be offering to your current or ex or new clients, mustn't be plain vanilla. If you're generic, if you're making the same arguments as your competitors, it's not going to make you stand out and it's not going to give you a competitive advantage. So if your website or your practice brochure says high quality legal work, a one-stop shop for all your legal needs, highly qualified lawyers, doesn't mean anything because that's what everybody is saying. And again, in terms of high quality work, this is a really silly one to be mentioning. I, as your client, expect high quality work. I'm assuming that if I'm paying that kind of hourly rate, you're not going to mess it up and do something silly. So be very careful not to only rely on plain vanilla arguments. They won't harm you, but they won't actually help you proactively when you're trying to get new work and engagements. On top of the plain vanilla, you need to have your UVPs, your unique value propositions. For answering, in terms of why someone should work with you, the UVP will show your competitive advantages, your differentiators. It could be about a niche UVP. You have a specific niche area of practice. It could be a synergy. You have a couple of combination services which give you an advantage. It could be about a business model, how your operations differentiate you from competitors, allow you to do something quicker, more efficiently, faster, uh, more, even cheaper perhaps. It could be um, a practice product UVP, that you have specific experience in doing certain tasks, such as proactive restructuring for asset protection, or doing an ESOP, an employee share ownership plan, or monetizing IP assets through franchises. There are many different types of UVPs. Perhaps you have a language UVP, that you have experience working with a certain linguistic group or culture or country. There are many ways that you can spin this. You mustn't be plain vanilla. You need to have some UVPs to make you stand out and be more convincing. I think at this point, let me just take a brief break and I can do an advertisement. So you can see a couple of three little pictures. Just this week, we printed a couple of my books. So we haven't had these in print since before the pandemic, since 2019, but now we do. So we have the Nixedonia Picto book with about 400 key concepts from 25 topics of business development. That's available on Amazon. We have the first book about new client hunting, this textbook, and then on the very first picture you can see a box of the concept cards. So these little pictograms that I do with the picture on one side, the key concept explained on the other, these are also in flashcard format. So if you're interested in getting any of these, either you can find them on Amazon or drop me an email. Further, I would mention that it seems obvious, but many law firms don't do this. You need to have high personalization with all of your touch points with a client or a potential client. So something which looks like a mass mailing is not going to go down well. Why are you doing newsletters? I don't get the idea of most of the newsletters from law firms. I think they're mostly just dumped into spam. I've seen some law firms spending hours making newsletters which are 20, 30 pages long once a month. Yes, they can be loved by in-house legal counsel because it gives them good tips and advice and it also helps them to do their job, which could result in cannibalization of potential sales that your legal practice would have got. So your newsletter might actually result in you having less work than you otherwise would have had. Rather than do a newsletter, why not put it into a personalized email to your client, address them by name, mention their industry? Yeah, I think that's going to have a higher chance that you'd get a meeting with them or an engagement. And then, you should know more about your client. When is their birthday? Do you have a list of the birthdays? You could invite them to lunch on their birthday, send them a book, send them a card, know what their hobbies. You need to be closer to your clients. Should you be on Facebook? Yes, probably you should, not just LinkedIn. Um, I think the main problem for most of the lawyers and partners isn't about being too close to the clients. It's that quite a lot of them have never even met their clients. So personalize your relationship, build that trust, that social equity with them. It's very, very, very important. And whatever you're going to do in business development, don't play the waiting game. The waiting game means we have a legal practice and we have our marketing and we're in Legal 500, we're in Chambers, we have a website, we do something on social media like LinkedIn, and we wait. And there's a pipeline of clients that are coming to us. Sometimes we get some work and then we do it, and then they recommend their friends and we do it. Playing the waiting game is very, very dangerous and very foolish. Even if you have a lot of work coming to you, and I hear this excuse so many times from managing partners and partners around the world, we are too busy. We don't need to do business development. I would ask you, what exactly are you busy with? Is this more commodity work or premium work? If you're so busy, why haven't you increased your hourly rates? If you're so busy, uh, why is it that you're not developing these niche industries that you would like to be focusing on? Why is it you're doing this generic work that's coming from any industry for any practice? So if we did a breakdown of the actual work, which people are too busy with, we might see that a lot of it is commodity stuff rather than premium stuff. A lot of it doesn't have any strategic direction. It's not connected to the vision of where we want to be going. It's just work for the sake of work. How inspiring or motivational is that going to be for your lawyers? And what kind of control do we have over this? Don't play the waiting game. Take control of your destiny. Take control of the areas of work that you will be developing and that you're going to be focusing on. Some law firms, it's crazy. They entirely play the waiting game and they have a very good reputation. And this pipeline of work comes to them and they think everything is good. And everything is good until it stops. You know, sometimes there's a war, sometimes there's a pandemic, sometimes there's a financial downturn. Do not play the waiting game. You need to move your activities away from marketing, which is okay, into proactive sales. And again, sales is proactive. It's coming from you. You have to go out there like the hunter with your spear and you got to kill that mammoth. You got to meet that ex client. You got to meet that new client. You got to go and have tea for two or tea for three with your current client. Do your sales. Sales costs you almost nothing and it's quick and it's proactive and you control the industry that you're working in and the practice and you're going for premium work. Marketing is fine. You don't have a problem with marketing. You can hire, you probably already have hired wonderful colleagues who can help you in marketing. Marketing pulls clients to you, it'll bring you a pipeline. Marketing raises awareness that you exist on the market and it increases your eminence. So I wouldn't worry too much about your marketing. Let the marketing colleagues help you with that. You need to focus on your sales. Of course, the difficult point is, let's be honest, sales is usually out of the comfort zone and marketing is in the comfort zone. That's why so many lawyers waste a ton of time doing random marketing activities which don't bring any obvious return on investment to the firm. So, okay, spend 5 hours writing some academic article if you want, and it can go into a newsletter or the website, and we will see perhaps no return on investment from that, and we won't even measure it. I don't think that would really motivate or inspire me. However, if you were going to write a one-page article, product-based, in plain English, and then to pitch that, to email it to some 10 current clients, 10 ex-clients, and 20 potential clients, and then you would phone those potential clients afterwards, giving them a warm call to check if they got it. You could use that article for sales, to generate meetings. So, um, I would simply ask, what's your return on investment? You spent all of these hours doing something. What did you get from it? If your answer is you have no idea, then you probably didn't get anything from it. Now, it is possible to put all of the activities that you can do as a lawyer on a thing called the sales and marketing spectrum. So we can have at the very, very top something like cold calls, which is 100% sales, all the way down to pure marketing, something like advertising. And we can begin to put the different activities in business development, which incorporate sales and marketing, on this spectrum. I made a business development menu where I put together I came across something like 25 different activities that you can do. So you have cold calls and advertising and pitching and cross-selling and networking and public speaking and articles, all of these different things. And many of them don't exist in some of the countries where I do training. So on this slide, I've done a screenshot of the first page, the first top of the sales and marketing spectrum. This is like this business development menu is a 7 page document. So we have a name of the activity, we have an explanation of the activity, and then you measure the conversion ratio of the activity. How do you measure the metrics of success? So if you're going to do cold calls, which I probably advise you not to do, in many countries it's illegal, it's against the bar. You could do warm calls. A warm call is when somebody knows you and you phone them. So you do a warm call to a current or next client. Let's say you do 10 calls. You suggest on these calls to have meetings. You manage to get 5 meetings. And of those 5 meetings, you get 2 mandates. Your conversion ratio is 10, 5, 2. You need to measure your conversion ratio from everything that you do in business development. And if you don't, you won't see results. And that might mean you don't have results. Conversion 0. On the bottom left, you can see another recommendation that I have in the business development menu, the more junior colleagues will do less business development hours per week, and the more senior will do more. So if you're very junior, you might just do 1 hour per week. If you're a partner, it might be a couple of hours per day, every day. If you're a managing partner, maybe half your time is business development. Theoretically, all of your time might become business development with zero billable hours. So there's going to be a change in the balance of your work. The more senior you become, the more business development hours you do, the less billable hours you do. You're also going to have to do more management as well, which can be a bit of a hassle. Let's agree, if you're doing zero business development hours, then you have room for improvement. So this business development menu, if you're interested, we can talk about it. I can do a consultation on this. It's a very big topic. That would take probably half an hour at least. If you don't have a business development menu, then maybe you should actually make one. Make a list of all of the activities that you guys are doing for business development, define them, and put the conversion ratios. This would be a good place to start, because we do need to answer those two questions. Why should I work with you, and what can you offer me? These are the two critical questions to be a success commercially as a lawyer. Why should I work with you? Not giving me plain vanilla answers, generic answers, showing me your UVPs, your differentiators. That's the first tricky question, the first critical question. And then the next one is, what can you offer me? What products do you have? What solutions do you have? What can you proactively pitch? Again, from hundreds of law firms around the world, most of them are entirely reactive and have nothing to offer. They don't offer something, or they only offer something from time to time if the law changes, and then it's some kind of review, which most people ignore. You need to develop legal products. You need to develop legal things, solutions that you can pitch, that you can offer. Um, if you like, try to answer these questions. Drop me an email and I can be very critical. I'll tell you if I think it's good answer or not good answer and how to improve it further. You need to answer these two questions well and to have them in your head prepared, because then you can do proactive pitching. When you have a wonderful value proposition, you have something that you think is very exciting, very good to offer, then you can pitch it, even if you're coming from a transactional practice. Let's look at bankruptcy and insolvency. Again, these guys are usually reactive. They sit, they play the waiting game, they wait for some company to get into distress and then come to visit them and ask them for help. Maybe some restructuring, maybe insolvency, maybe bankruptcy, whatever. You could, as a bankruptcy and insolvency lawyer, offer other products, other proactive pitches of solutions to clients. You could offer a financial health check, give them a status, green, orange, red. Where are they? How likely is it they're going to get into difficulties? And we can then prevent the difficulties from happening. You could begin to look at the opportunities of distressed assets. Maybe we can help them and introduce them to different buyers or investors. You could do proactive restructuring. You could do spin-offs. You could do downsizing. You could offer a lot of things if you're a bankruptcy or insolvency lawyer to get through the door to have a meeting with a key decision maker. Then you got more chance of getting work, of generating work. Again, most bankruptcy and insolvency practices don't do that. An approach might be to recycle. If you have done other previous work for a client, then that concept, that idea might be interesting to pitch as a proactive pitch, as a solution to other clients. I think that's ethical. I'm not talking about a copy paste. You're not copy pasting a memorandum, but you're proposing that idea, that solution, that investigation, and you become stronger and quicker and more efficient in researching and proposing this kind of thing. We can propose offensive or defensive UVPs. You know, if you are a bankruptcy and insolvency lawyer, a defensive UVP might be, we can show you how to protect your core assets from hostile takeover or from being um, engaged and taken from you or frozen in the event of litigation or cases, so that you have business continuity. We can offer this kind of protective UVP. On the other hand, we can offer an offensive UVP. We can make a scan, a business partner scan. We can see what's happening with the other players on the market. We can identify companies that you might want to avoid doing business with because they're getting into bother, or that you can look at as being targets to take over. Or we can even suggest when you should be doing uh, claims. to secure your rights so that you have, as a creditor, as a business partner, that you're going to have the first preference if things go horribly wrong. So offensive and defensive UVPs, swords and shields. There are many different ways to look at this, different types of products and value propositions to offer. One thing that I did some time ago, I helped one law firm. Actually, I've helped quite a few law firms with this. They said to me, James, this is horribly difficult, finding our UVPs. You tell us we should have niche UVPs and synergy UVPs and business model UVPs, and we have 18 different practices. How about, James, you just share with us some of your ideas? So we would like, for these 18 practices, 3 different UVPs: niche, synergy, and business model. Can you do that? Yes, yes, I can. And I did. And just based on my experience with working with hundreds of law firms, I put it together. On the screen, it's a little bit small text. You can see examples of UVPs for securities practice, for competition law and state aid practice, for real estate and development practice. And then there's another 15. So if you find it difficult to come up with the answer, why should I work with you? And then what should you offer me? Then that's something which we can talk about. Drop me an email. This is something I have some experience with. Um, it's not rocket science, but it takes a little bit of time, and it mustn't be plain vanilla. So, moving on, I would then like to conclude with the last slide for today, is that vision is important. The individual motivation and aspiration of the lawyer and the partner is important, where they want to be going, and that has to be wherever you want to be going, your vision as a law firm, your company. That kind of internal, intrinsic motivation can motivate and inspire people to take action and do business development. I haven't seen any law firms which have financial motivation systems that really work. It might work with maybe 10% of lawyers, but usually it doesn't. So if you wanted to combine vision for business development to inspire, motivate, and enthuse people, it wouldn't be a bad idea to also have a financial motivational system too. Now, typical financial motivational systems only focus on new client hunting. We might have some catastrophic system, a very bad practice that says, if you bring in a new client to our firm, we'll give you 10% of that revenue. That's a bad idea because then it kills any motivation to develop current clients or ex-clients. You will end up with no cross-selling, no upselling, no reselling, no client retention, and people who try to do business development will try and chase new clients because they get a bonus for doing so. You shouldn't do that. You should have a motivational system which rewards and recognizes current client, ex-client, and new client development. And again, the one and the two, current and ex-clients, are probably going to be the easier win. So I've done a paper on this. This was a project I've helped some different law firms with as well. If you have a motivational system, I expect it doesn't work. Sorry to be blunt. If you would like a consultation, this is maybe more at managing partner level, and some ideas and best practices on how to make a 1-2-4 motivational system, then that's something which we can look at together. If this is a little bit above the pay grade for some of our viewers, if you're simply a junior associate, a lawyer, a standard lawyer, then you can't really change the financial system that you have, but you can be motivated by vision about where you want to go. So I think that's something that you can focus on to keep in mind. So what would be the next steps? If you want, drop me an email and answer those 2 questions. Why should I work with you? What can you offer me? I'll give you feedback on that. If you want a copy of this slide with the text version of the key concepts, I can send it to you. That's free. Just drop me an email as well if you want to get acquainted, tell me who you are, what you're doing. I'm pretty opinionated. I can share some material, share some thoughts with you. I can even share with you my big Nixedonia picto book. So I showed you, it's a very heavy book. I think you could kill somebody with this book. It's like a brick. It's got 400 key concepts. That's the one which we're going to start selling on Amazon. If you want it in electronic format, I can send it to you. Then there's some other things which are not free. This would need a little bit of consultation. So the business development menu, the 124 motivational system, and 54 UVPs, these would take maybe 1 or 2 hours. So you get the document, and then I give you a consultation of what you actually do with that. So it doesn't just sit on your table and gather dust. And then, of course, finally, if you want some business development training, I get around. It's much more fun in person than on Teams. That's something which I can do. So from the 24 topics that I have available, each of them is usually for 4 hours if done in person. And lastly, I decided to make a list of the places I'm going to be for the remainder of 2022. You can see I do get around. Going to be in Warsaw, Riga, Madrid, Lisbon, Bratislava, Vienna, Frankfurt, Budapest, Milan, Bucharest, Sofia, and Belgrade so far, up to the end of the year. So if you are in one of these cities, in one of these jurisdictions, keep in mind if you want some training, I'm there. If you don't want training, but you'd like a coffee or a lunch, that could also be quite fun. So if I'm around, drop me a line. I'd be very happy to speak with you. And I think I've gone a little bit over time. That was 35 minutes rather than 30. In any case, that's enough for today. I hope you had a few ideas, a few inspirations, and you've got my socials. You can connect with me. That's fun. Or drop me an email, and I'd be very glad to hear from you. So, I hope to see you next Thursday, and yeah, let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.